Hey, hey, hey. Ho, 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 ho. Don't start. My microphone always want to start. Always want to start something. And you want to be starting something. You got to be starting something. Got to be starting. You know what I'm saying? Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Inner Storyteller. Welcome back to your real life. Welcome back. My name is Soul Expression. You can call me Soul. And if you're here, you are in for some real conversations, good people, about natural law, talk about religion, the good, the bad, the ugly, and the great, money, anarchy, culture, and how mankind is manipulated from the shadows by forces that do not have our best interests at heart as the human family, perhaps because they are completely evil. Who knows? But we are not bashing faith systems here, good people. We are simply examining the psychological affects and effects of the stories we believe that we have the most faith in, the ones we have the most stake in, and how those stories help shape society. Now, that examination has to sit right alongside an honest look at the current human condition, which is slavery. Government is slavery, good people. And question we have to keep coming back to is what can actually be improved with a proper understanding of the inner storyteller and how it works. Who knows? But we explore that question on this channel, and if any of that makes you uneasy, makes you a little angry, or uncomfortable in any way, please be assured and reassured that although you are encouraged to stay, have a good time, get into the comments, have a chat, maybe confront some of those feelings, you are encouraged to stay. You are also free to leave. You are welcome to leave at any time, but only after you like the video. They say you might get bad luck for 7 years if you leave without liking the video, and I really care about how the status of your luck in life. So please, please do not try to get out of here without liking the video. What up, y'all? What is going on? We have a wonderful show planned for you all. Today we are talking the religion of monetary value, part 3. Did I put Yes, I did. Okay. Um Religion of monetary value. This religion is, I think, the most important religion to fully understand if you have any inclination to one day, or you already currently are fighting for the freedom of humanity. Not only the freedom of yourself and your family, but the freedom of the human family from the systems that enslave us. Now, we are going to get into, in depth, some of the kind of foundational understanding of this thing. But please understand a couple things before we get into it. First of all, I am just, your humblest of hosts. I am not special. And I do not have the answers. Okay? We do. We have the answers. I alone do not have the answers. Secondly, there is nothing new under the sun. So, what I'm offering today is not to be taken as I'm trying to give you something like this completely new way of thinking, this completely new understanding of the world around you that you've never heard before or that you've never heard anything similar, and it's going to change your life, right? It's not what we're doing here. It's not where we're aiming. We are not aiming in that direction. The direction that we are aiming in is understanding this. The mother and father of all religion. Okay. The mother of all religion is the monetary value religion. It's the religion that there is such a thing as monetary value. The father of all religion, which is actually birthed birthed at the same time of a religion of monetary value, so far as I can put together, is the religion of man's authority, right? Monarchs, governments, emperors, and everything in between, royal families, right? What we are going to get at is not necessarily within the realm of these four things here. This is Mark Passio, everybody. Mark Passio did a presentation at Yale about what 12 or so years ago. It was a long time ago, and he was telling his audience at the beginning of his presentations, as he always did, that the religions of the world that you can see on the top right, the religion of politics, as you can see on the top left, as in like the left versus the right. The religions on the right is like, my God over your God. The New Age movement that you can see on the bottom right of the people who are meditating their world into a better state somehow, or scientism, bottom left. Scientism being not science as in the scientific method, but actually just the rigid, um, authority based, hierarchy based, seniority based scientism that we have today in the scientific, you know, communities. Just to see that, I forgot that I took a closer picture. And what we are going to get into is the mother of all of these religions, which is money, right? That's what we're going to get into, money. And it's very important to understand that, where am I? Here I am. That I am not against the idea of economy in general. I am not against people organizing their favorite form of trade with like some sort of money game as an idea. What I am against is slavery, and I am against slavery in all of its forms, especially slavery via ignorance, meaning the manipulation of the grammar that can go into the stories that you tell yourself, because truth is hidden and obscured and inverted and transmuted into lies by people that run like media systems and or governments and or rulership. I want to start today with something that I said on a recent episode that I want to expand on and kind of dedicate this episode, this mini series to it. What I said is that the religion of monetary value is indeed the mother of all religions, and that the religion of man's authority, the belief system that says it is legitimate for a group of human beings to rule over another group of human beings, is the father of all religions. Today, I want to show you that this is not just my philosophical position coming from anecdotal, experience and just being mad at the world and black pill. It's a documented historical sequence that if you pay attention, you'll probably agree. I don't know. Because when you understand which one came out of the other, and how the second one was produced by the first one by necessity and like instantaneously. The whole picture of how we ended up where we are is much harder to dismiss. What where we are, the current human condition is slavery. Government is slavery, always has been. What the religion of monetary value actually is the worldwide belief system that says money is real, money is required, and money is the legitimate gatekeeper of access to the abundance of resources that already exist in nature without money existing in nature. Okay, that's the religion, that it's real, it's required, and it's the legitimate gatekeeper between human beings and the abundance of resources that already exist in nature, even when and even before and even after, maybe if there's ever an after, money exists. This religion has a God. I call that God in my second book, The Inner Storyteller, the market. It has a clergy, right? Central banks, financial institutions, securities transfer agents, the bodies that set the rules for how the sacred symbol moves. And it has a congregation, right? Everyone who participates in the system and treats the symbol as though it has the same reality as the labor, the sweat, the equity, the resources, the human energy that it claims to represent. And it has a founding myth. Okay? It has a founding myth. The story that without this system, human beings could not coordinate, could not build, and could not survive with the same resources and time and space that we used to coordinate, build, and survive the entire time. That founding myth is indeed false. We have 5,000 years of documented evidence that it's false. So, first chapter, let's get into that. Just the founding myth of this whole thing. Every economics textbook teaches the same origin story. Humans first bartered goods directly with each other. Barter became inefficient, so they invented money as a more convenient medium of exchange, and money came from the people organically to serve the people's needs. This is the general party line of the creation of money, as we can kind of understand it. Anthropologist David Graeber spent years of research across multiple civilizations dismantling that story in his book called Debt: The First 5,000 Years. His finding, backed by evidence, archaeological evidence, anthropological evidence, his finding is precise, to say the least. He says, debt and credit appeared before money. Money appeared before barter, not the other way around. The barter origin myth has no archaeological evidence supporting it anywhere, according to Graeber. What the evidence actually shows from the earliest clay tablets in Sumer, dating back approximately 3200 BC is that the first monetary systems were credit and debt systems managed by temples and palaces. What? Could you imagine? What? The first monetary system is the same fiat bullshit that we deal with today? Crazy. Now, I say same, that's a generalization. It's not it's not super accurate as a term, okay? But I'm not litigating anything here. Debts were recorded in standardized units, shekels of silver, measures of barley, pardon me, on clay tablets by scribes working for religious and political institutions. Okay? Just a general reminder for those of us that need general reminders sometimes of history. There has never been a ruling class that did not get the head nod, the okay, from the religious or clergy or priest class of that region at that time. Okay. The priest class is always the real leadership because the religion of man's authority is not based on actual natural authority, right? It's based on fictional authority and agreement and force and coercion. Those things require mind control. Anyway, from the beginning, money systems were shaped by power. What does power mean? The religion of man's authority. Religious and political leaders, designed by the monetary system's rules, controlled the recording of information about debts and credits and decided and decided how resources and goods would flow. And they used monetary systems to manage society and achieve their own aims. That was true 5,000 years ago, and it's still true today. If people really studied their history, a lot of the big reveals of Hollywood and Satanists and um the people that are viciously against the left and viciously against the right, all being buddy buddy together in hotels and in parties and at dinners. All of these big reveals would make so much more sense if we really understood, and not just like names and dates, but like the general themes of how the mind control stuff works, how it meshes together, what makes us repeat the same mistakes, and etc. We would stand a bigger chance at rebellion and organization, as well as a bigger chance at negotiation and not having to rebel with a lot of physical defensive force. Anyway, the part that nobody talks about is as follows. Who could read those clay tablets back then? Who really understood the monetary system that they were participating in back then by the numbers? What do you think? Do you think most of the population was literate and financially literate? Right? I'd say to the question, who could understand what was written, is not the farmer whose debts are being recorded, not necessarily the laborer whose output is being measured and calculated, not necessarily the ordinary person whose access to food and shelter was suddenly being dominated by shekels and scribes in a temple that they may have never entered. Who knows? The earliest monetary systems operated through symbols and records that the vast majority of the population likely could not read, could not verify, could not challenge in any meaningful way. The accounting was done by temple scribes for palace administrators in a writing system that took years of specialized training to acquire. The ordinary person had no access to the record of what was being written about them. They had no way to confirm the number, no way to dispute it, no way to examine the terms of the system they were being enrolled in, the terms and conditions of the contract. Which means the acceptance of the monetary system by the ancient population was not informed consent. It was not a voluntary agreement reached by people who understood what they were agreeing to and went into it voluntarily, knowingly, and informed. It was compliance. Compliance under conditions specifically designed to prevent real examination and accountability for fraud and just violence. you know, the sort of function, the sorting function, sorry, the sorting function that we talk about, within the philosophy of the inner storyteller, right? You have this machine that kicks out the stories that you believe in at breakneck speed, called the inner storyteller. Within that is the sorting function. The sorting function helps categorize experiences and meaning, right? And so the sorting function of the ancient population, the collective sorting function of the collective inner storyteller of those people, was being shaped by a symbol system that they couldn't read, largely administered by people who could, and enforced by people with the threat of violence and or real violence, right, with weapons. Now ask yourself, what do you call a system completely built on a lie, where the terms are written in a language most people can't understand, administered by people who benefit from the compliance of the ignorant, and enforced by the threat of and or the use of violence? What do you call that? I say slavery, the oldest con in the book. And you call whatever it inevitably produces, which is the authority structure required to sustain it today, government. Government is what the religion of monetary value always produces. Okay? And if you don't want to use the word government, then governance. And this is like my central argument for today's episode. Government is not a natural feature of human organization that independent people voluntarily created to serve their collective needs. Not once. Government is the direct institutional consequence of enough people in an area accepting a monetary system where the few really understand and know the rules, write the rules, and the many are just made to be obedient and largely ignorant of the inner workings of said tool, right? Here's how history lays it out. The monetary system arrives. Boom. Administered by the temple and the palace on behalf of religious and political elites, obviously. The population encounters the system not as a choice that they can evaluate and accept or reject, but actually as a condition of their survival, just like we are when we're born into these monetary systems. Um, but within an environment that the elites already control. The population cannot read the accounting. They cannot verify the numbers assigned to the debts. They cannot examine the terms. What they can do is comply with the system's demands, pay the grain, they can render the labor, pay with your body, right? Get whipped all day to move a stone somewhere. They can meet the obligation, or they can face the consequences administered by the people with the weapons and the monopoly on violence. Now, does that sound familiar? How many people do you know that are truly financially literate? Right? Like, to truly be financially literate, you have to be legally literate. And financial definitions and legal definitions are different. It's a whole mess, good people. And it's a mess on purpose. You, there are laws against people doing certain accounting strategies and doing certain legal actions without first getting a permit or graduation, because your average person, the system is designed for your average person to not be able to understand the accounting within the territory, jurisdiction, and governance of the government. Right? We are designed. It's designed for the general population to be compliant and ignorant, so that all the room in the world is there for fraud, exploitation, right? And getting over on people. That compliance, sustained across generations, becomes normalized. The children of the compliant population are born into a world where the monetary system already exists and already feels like a feature of reality, rather than a constructed arrangement servicing specific interests. And their inner storyteller is built around the symbol system and the trappings and aesthetic of the symbol system before they have any capacity to really examine what the symbol actually is or who decided what it meant for them. And the monetary system, once accepted, especially once widely accepted, generates an immediate and unavoidable need to obtain and maintain units of monetary value, or symbols that represent units of monetary value, because you can never actually get a unit of monetary value because there's no real such thing as monetary value. So you can get symbols, whether digital or on, you know, specific pieces of paper with barcodes on them, and those symbols can represent, you know, monetary value for you. So anyway, you suddenly have a need to get these symbols for that represent units of monetary value and maintain them. Someone has to administer that. Someone has to decide what the symbol is worth, who gets to issue it, under what circumstances, what happens to those who counterfeit it or who uh, refuse it, right? Um, Someone has to maintain the records. Someone else has to enforce the obligations. The administration and enforcement are largely what the government is. Hence, the mother of all religion necessitates the father in every form it has ever taken: the monarch, the Senate, the regulatory agency, the central bank. Every governing authority in human history has been at its functional core an administrative and enforcement apparatus for a monetary system built on a story. Most of the people subject to it never had the tools to really examine for themselves. So, the answer to that question at the top of the show is the religion of monetary value came first. Government is a direct result of the religion of monetary value. And Dr. Graeber states that without any ambiguity, he states that the states created markets, markets required states, neither could continue without the other in anything like the forms we would recognize today. The mother generated the father, not as a partner, but as a necessary product. The monetary religion needed an administration and enforcement apparatus to function properly and to function at scale. Government is what happens when that need arrives through the acceptance of a monetary system. I think you get what I'm trying to say. So, once the father of all religion arrives, hello government, hello monarch, hello emperor, hello tribal elder class, whatever, whoever the priest class and the enforcement arm are of the region or arms. You get a circular dependency, right? Once the father arrived, something important changes. The relationship between the two systems becomes mutual. The money system no longer just needed government to administer it and enforce it. Government also now needed the monetary system to fund itself, to give legitimacy to its spent energy, spent, you know, sweat, equity. So, taxation, which forced the population to acquire the sacred symbol in order to meet their obligation to authority. And I know you say so, but there was no taxation way back then. You said the religion started 5,000 years ago. You damn right there was taxes back then. 5,000 years of taxation is theft. 5,000 years, somebody on earth has been screaming, taxation is theft. Nobody's listening. Um, Taxation, which forced the population to acquire the sacred symbol in order to meet the obligation to the authority, and then the management of debt. Right, debt bounds the population to the authorities' banking structures across generations, automatically, almost automatically. Of course, you have to opt in somehow, some way, or have a guardian opt you in when you're too young to opt in for yourself. Through the control of resource allocation, which is what seniority in the Senate produces, what the investment bank produces, what the central bank produces, that made participation in both systems simultaneously mandatory for survival. Okay, the control of resource allocation makes it mandatory for both systems to work hand in hand. Right. Sumer may go back way further. There's a interesting comment here from Tensi. Y'all say what's up, Tensi. Um, Sumer goes back 200,000 years, depending on who you ask. Yeah, who knows? I wasn't there in this form with this brain to house that memory. But could be, right? Usually I say 6 to 15,000 years ago, but I don't. I just don't know. I don't know. I don't know. It's too much. Too much. I really don't rely on anything but themes nowadays when it comes to the historicity of names and dates, right? Themes, I think it's because themes arise, it is smart to be exposed to your history, to world history, a lot of it. But I don't take the names and dates too seriously because there's just I just know too much about how easy it is for people to manipulate what's written down as truth, as history, by watching what we do today and knowing that they had even more of an advantage when all of the population was illiterate, to write down fake history. And it used the same mind control techniques to convince people through gaslighting and just, the sociopathic tactics that they use today to fool the public. um that I just imagine they did the same thing back then. So the mother and father of all religions became codependent on each other, and the congregation, the population running both religions in their inner storyteller simultaneously, became the resource that funded both of these things. Okay, the obedient population, the congregation, the obedient masses. This is the integrated system that we are still participating in right now. Not as a choice that you made with full information. Obviously, you were opted in before you knew your name. As a condition of the world that you were born into, already running, already normalized by the people, already filed into the appropriate sorting function drawers, categories in your inner storyteller, before you even had the language to ask what was in them. I think my daughter was excited about, what was it, like $1 or something? Some fake money thing. She was like, "Oh, I got $1, or I got money." I forget what she said, but she was like excited already. Already, we're already going with it, right? She's 2 now. That brings me actually to this next point that I want to address, which is the objection that always comes from, like, when I'm very direct in this conversation with people. This objection always comes here because it's logical. The objection is, but soul, without money, without government, how would a complex human coordination be organized? How would it work? What's your solution? What should we do? Just not go to work? Because nobody's going to go to work if you're not going to get some sort of money. They're asking, how would projects get done at scale? Especially big, complex motherfuckers, like huge projects that happen. Weather manipulation, if you will. Um, aren't these systems what made civilization possible? No, they are not. Here's why. The resources themselves cannot and do not disappear when you remove the symbol system that was placed on top of the understanding of how the resources move around. Right? This abstract idea of a transaction placed on top of reality does not, if that disappears, that does not erase the real resources, the real human beings, the real mental capacity for problem solving and creation, and the real capacities and abilities to get things done together and alone. All of those things are still fully intact, including the idea to solve the problem by inventing this thing or distributing this resource somewhere or bringing this water, you know, making some plumbing so that water does a thing. Whatever it is, the idea can still pop up. No, there's none of it requires a transaction because a transaction never really actually happens. There's no such thing in reality. So the resources don't disappear when you remove the symbol. The lumber is still the lumber. The water is still the water. The human labor is still the human labor. And the knowledge is still the knowledge. The symbols, so that means the knowledge of how to do things, of how the machine works, of how to build the thing, of how to create the parts for the thing, to build the thing. All of these phases of the projects getting done and of the problems getting solved, none of them require the transaction. That includes gaining the knowledge of the physical world, the science, the math of it all, and using it and experimenting and coming up with ways to hopefully sustainably solve our issues as we grow, as our population grows. The symbol system is simply an accounting, a layer of accounting placed on top of the real things. And there's only two real things that get projects done, that bring ideas to life. If you read my first book, Culture Control, then you know what those two things are. In fact, you know what? Let's read, since I know exactly where the information is in this book. It's just right here, chapter 1. There we go, chapter 1. Let's read a little bit from this book. Find out what the only two things are that get projects done. The only two ingredients to bringing ideas to life. Work and knowledge, good people. In this image, a man stands. Picture a concept from his head that he yearns to bring to life, encapsulated within a thought bubble. It can be anything: a new girlfriend, a video, a treehouse, a legacy, a project, a hobby, you name it. He asks, what brings ideas like mine to life? And we see the only two indispensable ingredients for transmuting his ideas into reality are laid bare, which are work and knowledge. We will explore this further, but keep in mind as you travel in the trains of thought tunneled within these pages that work and knowledge are the only two ingredients, the only two absolute necessities for bringing your ideas and desires to life. It is imperative that your understanding of what is absolutely necessary to actualize and materialize ideas into reality is not clouded by the illusion of monetary exchange or authoritative permission. These illusions are precisely what keep us in the dark about the potential we have as a human family to achieve a society of freedom, harmony, and prosperity for all. You can get your copy of Culture Control in that link. In that link right down. You know what I'm saying? Visit that. Also the Inner Storyteller. You know what I'm saying? Get that. Cop that. The Inner Storyteller is the second book, the newer book. The most philosophically deep book, but obviously Culture Control is a close second. Anyway, shameless plug deactivated. Work and knowledge, two ingredients. That's what it takes for anything to come to life. Not money, not government permission, not the clergy of the religion of monetary value deciding on if your project is worth funding or not. Work and knowledge applied to real existing resources in nature. Human creative capacity is not a product of the monetary system, nor power. The greatest creative output in human history has often come from people with no or very little money. Kanye West came from Chicago with no money and produced some of the most widely heard music on earth. Gothic cathedrals were built by people who were not wealthy, even if it was at the command of people who were very wealthy. The greatest agricultural systems in human history were built by communities that operated on gift economy and reciprocity rather than monetary exchange. What the monetary system constrains, okay, is not our capacity to create. What it constrains is who gets to decide what gets created, who gets access to the real sort of inventions and parts and teachers and trainers to create it successfully within a good amount of time, and who gets to keep the product of the creation or the rights to the product of the creation, which is another layer of the accounting, having the rights, the entitlement to something. That constraint is not a feature of human civilization. It is a mechanism of a control system installed in people, installed in the stories you tell yourself about reality. And here's where the history meets the inner storyteller framework. Every human being alive today was born into the religion of monetary value the same way that they were born into their native language. Before they could evaluate it, before they had the conceptual tools to ask whether money is actually real or whether authority enforcing money's rules is actually legitimate, the sorting function was being built around symbol systems of both religions simultaneously. Money as real and required, government as legitimate and inevitable, all before the child could read, reason, examine what was being installed, or ask any questions. Just like the ancient farmer who couldn't read the clay tablet or really understand the inner mechanisms, inner workings of his monetary system. The illiteracy may be in a different form. We can largely read the Securities Exchange Act of 1934 and sound out the words that we haven't encountered yet. But that doesn't mean we can understand it, right? The illiteracy is in a different form, but the functionality of being illiterate, the inability to examine the foundational premise of these systems or the laws connected to these systems, has been maintained throughout all 5,000 years. Now, through the 12 years of compulsory schooling that teaches compliance with both systems as virtue, through media that treats both systems as natural features of reality, through the manufactured complexity of financial and legal language that functions exactly as the ancient cuneiform symbol systems did, as a symbol system that the ordinary person cannot really navigate without the help of the clergy, designed to keep us asleep to the truth and awake within our obedient dream. We categorize money into the real and required for survival drawers within our sorting function in our inner storyteller. We file government into the legitimate drawer. This is, of course, before it would even be of interest to us whether those things are true or not, most of the time, within our comfort. And that's the manufactured mentality that we're examining in this series. Not an accident, but an education, right? Not a failure of education, an education designed to condition you specifically not to question these things. But there's a way out. If government is the direct result of the monetary system being accepted by people, and if the monetary system continues to require and generate governing authority to administer and enforce it, then you cannot really address one without addressing the other if you want out. Okay? You cannot build a better monetary system and leave the authority structure that controls it intact. You cannot change the government and leave the monetary system that funds it intact. They are one problem, not two. Right? One problem with two faces. And the face that they both wear in the inner storyteller of the average person is the face of normal, required, and legitimate reality itself. That face is a lie. That lie is ancient. It's built on the acceptance of a symbol system by people who cannot read it, administered by people who could, and enforced by people with weapons, and inherited by every generation since, as though it were a feature of nature rather than the feature of a story. But it is indeed a story. And the work, the actual work that changes everything at a level where change is actually possible, of course. The work is not political. We're talking about monetary value, but the work is not economic. The work is starting with an examination of the stories that we have the most faith in, the ones we have the most stake in, and how those stories help shape society. And that examination has to sit right alongside an honest look at the current human condition, which is slavery. Government is slavery, good people. And the question we have to keep coming back to is what can actually be improved with a proper understanding of the inner storyteller and how it works. And the other question is, what story are you willing to live? Thank you. Thank you so very much for joining me on this excursion. Um really enjoyed this topic here. The religion of monetary value. I I'm going to make more videos in this series, The Religion of Monetary Value. But this is this is like the real foundational episode. If you want people to really start to understand this thing, if you are studying and understanding and thinking about this, about these systems in a new way, maybe because of my show or maybe before you got here, maybe you were exposed to Mark Passio, whatever. But this episode right here, I would share with people if I were you, if you want to introduce them to at least some content that will allow them to ask legitimate questions within themselves about the monetary value systems, the monetary value religion, pardon me, or the monetary systems that we use to allow people to rule our lives, right? But let me know in the comments um, what story you are willing to live, and I will see you guys tomorrow in the next episode. Peace and love. You know what I mean? Boom.